Hello, my name is Stephen Thomas, and welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're going to jump in and get hands-on doing vibe coding, building your very first C# application in VS Code. Now, what is vibe coding, you might say? Well, vibe coding is essentially the process of building code and applications essentially without building any code whatsoever, but leveraging AI and AI agents to do all the work for you. And this is exactly what we're going to do using GitHub Copilot. In today's demo, we're going to build a C# API application and a SQL backend for managing state of a deck of playing cards. This will allow us to create new decks and deal cards from that deck, all maintaining state in our SQL database. We're going to do all that by writing in English what we would like the application to do and executing this using our AI agent. And better yet, I'm doing all this with absolutely free components. Now, you do need a GitHub account, which I signed up with my Gmail and got it for free. And I'm using the free account to execute ChatGPT 4.1 as our AI agent. Now, I'm going to walk you through everything step by step that you need to go ahead and do this yourself. I'm hoping everybody will jump into VS Code and build your own application using the vibe coding approach. Now, I'm definitely not saying go vibe code and deploy your code out to production, but when you're building demos and solutions like this, it is definitely cool technology. Now, using AI agents in a vibe coding approach is definitely the wave of the future. What you can see in our demo, we actually run into a problem when the code is actually created, and we actually ask the AI agent to review the code and fix it, and sure enough, it does. What can be better than that? So with that, let's jump in and see how easy it is to build our first C# application simply using plain English.
Okay, let's jump into what we're going to build today. So the main goal here, remember, is to get you hands-on with building C# applications in VS Code using the brand new agent mode functionality. So this is your chance to follow along, pause this video as you see fit, and follow along. Everything as using free accounts as far as I know. So you should be able to complete all this as I go through this. If you're looking for more details and to copy and paste some of the prompts I'm using, follow the blog link below to stephenwthomas.com, and it will show you where you can copy and paste what we're working with today. So what are we going to build today? So I thought what would be a good first agent process for us to work with for our first vibe coding experience. And I'm going to build an application, an API application in C# that is going to handle a deck of playing cards. Now, I chose a deck of playing cards because most of us are familiar with, what a deck of playing cards is and how we have to kind of maintain state of what's in that deck of cards. So with this, we're going to build a API application and a corresponding SQL backend to handle dealing random cards if I want to get cards, or also managing the state of that deck of cards for us. So we're going to build our API application in C# and our SQL backend. And we're going to do this all via a vibe coding approach, which means we're not going to write a single line of code. We're going to write English text of what we want to do, and we're going to use GitHub Copilot in agent mode, and it's going to go ahead and create everything for us. And we'll see all that in action as we work through this. So let's get started with how my environment is set up. So I have SQL Server 2022 Developer Edition installed. So that's just the vanilla install. I have VS Code installed here. I have a few extensions that I have pre-installed. I installed the C#, of course, and with that it came with some other helper C# components. And then I have the GitHub Copilot and GitHub Copilot chat. Now you do need a GitHub account, which you can get for free, and I'm actually using my free account here to run this demo. And they'll give you a certain amount of credits to run in agent mode and auto completions and stuff like that. They do have a paid tier as well, so when you run out in your free account, you can upgrade if you would like. So I have all that set up here, pretty straightforward. I also have like .NET 8 framework pre-installed in this environment. Node.js, which we don't use for this demo, but we'll use in another demo, and kind of tailored everything to the way I like. I got Postman installed for testing, stuff like that. Now, one of the first things I want to show you is one of these settings that I've tweaked down here. So go to the gear icon bottom left, go to settings, and let's gonna call this, let's search for it under auto, so under chat. So under chat, settings here, there's this experimental setting called Chat Tools Auto Approve. Now, when you check this checkbox as your AI agent is going through executing your tasks, if you don't have this checked, it's going to prompt you each time it wants to execute. So it will say like .NET build, and it'll prompt you to actually execute that. For purposes of the demo, I just kind of want it to flow through. So I have this checkbox checked. Make sure you understand what's going to happen if you're running things in agent mode and you have this checkbox checked, because it could have drastic ramifications. So this is here. Of course, it's called experimental. I have it checked for purposes of the demo. So with that, to get started, I'm going to close all this. I'm going to go to GitHub Copilot, this little icon up here, and expand that open. I'm going to expand this open a little bit more so we can see this. And here at the bottom, we'll see some different modes. We have Ask, Edit, and Agent mode. We'll want to make sure we're in agent mode. And then here we can select the model that we want to use. Now, I've been doing everything in ChatGPT 4.1, so I'll continue to do so. I've added my Gemini API key, so that shows up here. If you are using a paid account, you'll have 6 or 8 other options that you can select. I'll do a video later kind of seeing what happens when you select a different model, see if we get better or different outcomes. So with that, I'm to the point now where I want to just paste in a prompt. So this is where we're going to jump over here. This is the first prompt that I came with. This is my first try. Now, a lot of times when I see other people doing vibe coding and building these amazing applications in just minutes and everything works right perfectly, I think, well, how many times did they really run it in the background to get their prompt that fine-tuned to just execute beautifully? And even with that, AI is not deterministic. So when I run it another time, there's no guarantee it's going to be even close to the same. So in this, to let you know here, this is about my 5th or 6th time executing this demo. This is my first crack at the prompt, just English instructions of what I want to do at a high level, not very detailed whatsoever. As I ran it and saw that it created, 3 APIs and it created, SQL this way and stuff like that, I modified this over time. 2 more iterations, I went through that. Then I took that iteration and pasted into Gemini. I said, Gemini, enhance this prompt to work for an AI agent. And it did an amazing job. It made it about 6 or 8 times larger than this in extreme detail. I looked at that and thought that it was a little bit overkill for kind of our first vibe coding experience. So I took it and put it into ChatGPT, and it gave a much more concise, user-friendly view of a prompt that we could work with. So that's what I have here. Again, you can copy and paste all these prompts directly out of my website, the link down below, and it outlines kind of what we're doing here. And there's certain things that I've added here as I've ran it multiple times. I add things like I'm trying to get it to continue without asking me a bunch of questions. I come in here in SQL and I say automatically create and deploy the SQL database and scripts, which maybe 1 out of 3 times it actually auto deploys the stuff into SQL, even though I tell it to. The other times it'll give me a script and I have to execute it myself. So we'll see what happens this time when we run it during this live demo. Creating the API layers, I break this out here exactly how I want to see it. Also outline that I want unit tests. And then one thing I was doing is after I ran this, I was manually creating a Postman file to test it outside of VS Code. And I thought, well, I bet I could just have the AI agent create my Postman file for me. And sure enough, I just add a line in here and I get my Postman file that I can just import and execute and test all my APIs, which is super cool. So I have that in addition to unit tests that are auto-created. And you can see things like here, I'm telling it to check the .htp file because I noticed sometimes it wasn't creating that right. And the weather forecast API is a generic boilerplate code in the API. It wasn't always removing that and leaving that there. So, but like I said, we'll see what happens when I run it this time. So like I said, my 6th run, there's probably been 1 or 2 runs that were just so bad, I just scratched them and started over again. Now, while we call this vibe coding, we're really doing this without building any code ourselves. You do need some coding experience. So the first couple times when I've built this with lesser prompts, there was a lot of debugging I had to do and kind of understand what the API was doing, what the data model was doing. So it's not just something you could just fire and forget and, deploy this to production, for example. So it's really just it's number one, it's fun and it's cool. And this is the future of our coding experience for developers. So we should embrace it now. And it's really powerful. And we'll see in the demo. And hopefully everyone likes this. So let's jump over to VS Code. I'm going to go ahead and paste that prompt in here, and everything should be there. And I'm just going to go ahead and execute this. Now, the first step of this prompt actually said, hey, go ahead and create a plan. I want the AI agent to create a plan of what it's going to do, and I'm going to review that plan before it actually goes and executes. This is always a good practice to make sure that it outlines what it's going to do. And now it's going to walk through these things step by step. I won't go through them at all. It's pretty consistent to what I've seen in other executes of this demo, unit tests and store procedures, everything like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and say approved. And it's going to go off and start creating components for us. The first thing it wants us to do is create a workspace, create a folder for this components to go to. So I'm going to go to my C drive, data folder, deck of cards, and just create it there. And it's going to restart and continue to keep executing our agent as we walk through this. Going to say continue setup. And it's going to walk through and show us everything it's doing step by step. Now, if I didn't have that checkbox, the auto approve checkbox selected, you would be getting prompts for all these commands saying, do you want to execute? I'd have to say yes and continue through it. Definitely works, flows a lot better for our demo purposes with that checkbox checked. Here in the terminal window, you can see everything that it's doing. Let me expand that open so we can see it better. And you can see all the commands that it's creating. It's creating our projects and creating class libraries. And I'll go ahead and stop here and just let that execute and jump back in the next time that it is prompting me for something. Okay, so now it's asking me if I want to review what it's done so far. It's going to go ahead and wants me to tell it to go ahead and create the data model. So I'm going to say continue, create data model. And another thing that's great about this is it's very forgiving on your spelling. I'm not a very good speller, so if I happen to spell something wrong, it generally knows what I'm asking it to do anyway, so that's definitely a plus. So let's go ahead and see if this is going to auto-create our components for us in SQL this time. You can see it's got our script and our deploy script, and you can run the PowerShell script to create the database. So this execution is not going to auto-create this in SQL for us. So let's go ahead and I'm going to jump over to SQL and just do a refresh, make sure it didn't do anything, and it didn't. So I'm going to go ahead and just open the SQL file that it had created, and we'll take a quick look at it. And it's under database, and here's our schema.sql. And let's go ahead and make sure that this is valid. It won't be valid because the deck of cards database doesn't exist yet. So let's go ahead and just execute this. And just like that, boom, it's created our whole database. And do a refresh. There's our deck of cards. Let's see how many tables we got here. We got 3 tables. Now, interestingly enough, as I've went through this multiple times, sometimes I get 2 tables and it adds the cards via store procedure. This time it gave me 3 tables, so that cards table is going to be a static table of all the different cards, so 52 cards are sitting in that table there. Programmatically, our store procedure. And I didn't tell the AI agent how I wanted it built or defined, so that's why it's using its own discretion there. And we see our 3 store procedures: create the deck, draw cards, and then list cards that aren't pulled from that deck yet. So we have everything there. So let's jump back here and say continue. And now it's going to go ahead and use that data model to build out the rest of the components. You can see here it's doing some replacing on the weather forecast, which I explicitly told it to do in the prompt because I have seen problems with that in the past. And since I've ran this enough, 5-6 times, I know where the problems that it's had in the past. The program.cs and the .http file have caused problems in the past. So if this doesn't work, first off, we'll jump in and take a look at those and see how that looks. You can see on the left here, it's got our Postman collection already created for us in JSON. So we can go ahead and import that as soon as this is done. So I'm going to go ahead and let this execute, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, now it's asking me to review the code and have it continue. Now you saw as I went through this, it did get some build errors as it was building it, and then it went ahead and fixed its own build errors, which is just pretty amazing. I didn't have to do a single thing. And I'm going to say continue, and it's going to go ahead and finish things up. Okay, and just like that, it's done. Just a few moments it took it to execute. I think it was less than 10 minutes altogether. I'll try to speed things up when you see this video, so we'll go a little bit quicker. And let's go ahead and let's just jump right in and test it. So let's first off go and let's run our unit. Let's ask it to run the unit tests. And make sure that it has unit tests there and that those all execute. And you can see everything has passed and been successful. Now I didn't tell it in very much detail what unit tests to actually create. So could have been more detailed in that prompt file, or I could ask it now to go ahead and just create additional unit tests for specific things as we see them. But let's just go ahead and let's see if we can run this now. I'm going to go to my API directory, .NET run, and that's going to launch this up. And this should just take a moment to fire up. While that's running there, I'm just going to load our Postman file. So I'm going to go to Import and go to Files and go to where it gave us our Postman file right here. And this is definitely cool. I'm glad I added that. Create a new deck. Right here on our port 5000 and HTTP for this demo purposes, and everything's running, localhost 5000. And now let's go ahead and fire this up. Now it's, in my experience, kind of been a 50-50 if it's going to work first try. So let's see. And 404 not found. So let's go ahead and try to troubleshoot what might have happened here when this 404 not found. So I know from experience some of the problems that could pop up here. And the other thing I forgot to mention is all the files that is executed here are, it's outlined all the changes that it's made. So these were blank files, so they're all shown here as underlined. I'm going to go in here and commit all these and accept the changes to all these files. And that will help us out. I did see some weather forecast stuff in there. Hopefully that was being deleted. Just go ahead and ask it for help. When running the API, getting a 404. Please review the code. And let's just ask the agent and see what it says. Okay, and you see here, it analyzed the code, it found a problem, and it was definitely something that it missed in the beginning. And would you like to apply this fix for me? Yes. And we'll just go ahead and have it apply the fix. Going to go ahead and update that file for us. And do a rebuild and a run. And we can see down here that it is back up and running again. So let's go ahead and try it again. So let's see how it goes this time. And sure enough, we got our 200 error back. So even though it didn't work the first couple times we tried, we were able to ask the AI agent, what's the problem? It could go ahead and analyze its own code and find the problem and go ahead and fix it for us. Now, other attempts that I've had at this, it worked right off the bat the first time. This time, again, live demo did not happen to work the first time. But even though it doesn't work, you can still go back, ask that AI agent, it doesn't work, review the code and fix it. And it went ahead and did that for us. So let's go ahead and grab this deck ID. And let's just go ahead and jump over here to draw cards. And I'm going to supply that deck ID. And I'm going to say 5 cards. We'll execute this. And sure enough, we can go ahead and get 5 cards back here for us. So that's pretty cool. One last method we have here, we'll see our cards left. So if we pulled 5 already, it should have 47 left, and we would see all those cards here and then count 47 at the bottom. All this would be in SQL as well. We could go in and see what's happening here. So really what this was intended is to help get you excited about this. Now, it didn't work perfectly the first time, which I think is exactly what you would expect and could expect for your first experience with building your first vibe coding C# application. So you do need to have some experience on how to fix it. Go ahead and ask the AI agent for help, and you can see we built this whole application in less than 20 minutes or so and didn't create a single line of code. So it's definitely cool, definitely exciting to see this happen and see how easy it is to interact and build code by using English typing language instead of having to remember syntax. So hopefully you enjoyed this. There'll be another video following up. We're going to take this API application and go ahead and create it into an MCP server and use this as an MCP server running locally. So our AI agent that we're communicating with can actually use this API application to manage a deck of cards. So that's going to be cool. That's going to be coming up shortly. So with that, thank you and hope you enjoyed. And don't forget to like and subscribe.